streamlined pathway from homelessness and family breakdown to independence and stability. Taldemunde's Young Offenders Intervention Program and Family Restoration and Preservation Program provide support that transforms the lives of young Australians every day. So thank you for being here, Nikki. Tony Loughran. Tony Loughran is Director of Zero Risk International, a global high-risk security management company. Zero Risk provides security, intel, and risk management services for corporate and individual clients travelling and working in areas of high conflict. Tony was Head of Security and Risk at the BBC and a medic for the British Commandos. Recently, he's developed the SEC app to help travellers stay safe during critical incidents such as earthquakes or terror attacks. He's also developed a course to help Australian teenagers reconnect with their parents, modelled on his British Commando learnings. Don't know I have the courage to participate in such a program, but thank you for being here, Tony. Next, Carissa Ainsworth. Carissa is the Children's Secretary for the New South Wales and ACT for the Salvation Army. She's been working on the front line with children, youth and families for nearly 25 years in both paid and volunteer positions. Carissa has held both local and regional roles where she designed, trained and ran programs and ministries, camps and peak events for children, youth and families across the state. Carissa now works for the National Children's Team and is involved in writing curriculum, developing and running programs and training for junior and developing leaders, and is involved in a wide range of projects that support how the Salvation Army connects with children and families in their local communities right across Australia. And finally, Moran Bailey. Moran is a professional mentor, coach and facilitator who has made a significant impact on the lives of young people, particularly through her volunteer work at the Raise Foundation, mentoring vulnerable high school students. With over 2 decades of experience in leadership and human resources, Moran understands the importance of businesses' efforts to do more than make a profit, such as supporting social causes, as well as supporting employees to manage the delicate balance of work and parenthood. So an amazing panel, please make them welcome. I want to start with a question to each panel member, which is, can you tell us a little about the people who you work with and what brings them to approach you for support with the services you offer? Thank you.
Hello. Am I supposed to do something with this? This one's on. That's okay. Sorry about that. So the families and the people that the Salvation Army are supporting these days, it's different from what it historically has been. We're seeing different cohorts of families that are struggling and need to approach the Army for not only emergency assistance but ongoing casework. So it's very different as it has been in the last, historically, however it's been. So, yeah.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction. So I'm utilizing my experience in human resources, working with organizations, helping them help their people. But in my spare time, I guess, my volunteer work is with the youth. So I'm a mentor, volunteering with an organization called Raise, and during semester time or the year, I go and work with school students, high school students, to support them through their journey.
Hi everyone. My particular thing is threefold really. One is for overseas and looking at children and families that are vulnerable in certain countries and vulnerable to radicalisation programs. And literally just come back from Israel and looking at just exactly what happens with some of the children. We also do mentoring programs for parents and children to try and get them to connect back together again. That's a new product of ours that's just kicked off and it's been really successful. and we've got some great results there. But also on top of that really is people come to us to try and see if we can actually gain a bigger understanding about security, risk and travel. And when the kids are going off in gap years, we tend to look after them from a physical and a psychological point of view as well.
Did that work? Yeah. So the leading cause of...
One.
No, it's not great.
Testing.
Yeah.
Right. That's better.
It's a bit early for that. The leading cause of referrals to our organisation is breakdown within family homes, and I suppose there's a massive misconception around the needs of the families on the north side, and and so I suppose socioeconomic status does not preclude families from all of the problems that the youth in today's society are experiencing, and so I suppose that includes school disengagement, mental health, you have substance issues, the relentless commercialisation and early sexualisation of young people and children, and I suppose when things are in the pressure cooker at home, and parents are overwhelmed with the young person perhaps engaging in some antisocial behaviours or some criminal behaviours. Unfortunately that does lead to youth homelessness in this area.
So, at the moment there are a lot of challenges that each of your organisations faces in trying to support those young people, those customers or clients. Can you share a little bit about what are some of the obstacles you face at the moment and how are you seeking to address them? We might start with Carissa.
I think the obstacles, I guess, that the Salvation Army would be facing in trying to support these families is we need the support to support them. So, and depending on what area the Salvation Army is working, what suburb, that is also, that plays a key factor in how we can support those families. We only have a certain amount of resources that we can provide. But we do work really hard with other organisations and other social community groups in each of those areas, and we connect families the best way we can to find a path out of poverty for them. So, but I think that would be right. It would be just, we can only help as much as we can with the resources that we have. Andrew mentioned before that there is a shortage of volunteers, and we are facing that within the Salvation Army because we no longer have the age group of people that can afford to not work and volunteer to help us support people in need. So that's probably one of our barriers, is having enough volunteers to support those. Andrew again was talking about training up young people. That's an area that I'm extremely passionate about, in training up teenagers to be on the front line and just supporting their friends and supporting the people that they know that are struggling. So I think that one of our barriers is having enough volunteers within our organisation for sure, and then obviously just the amount of resources that we have from amongst the different areas that the Salvation Army is based.
Okay, so where do I start? The challenges that I've been seeing with the youth. So firstly, I have a teenager at home, so I guess that also what fueled my desire to volunteer and help and work with young people is my own personal experience. So my child is currently 14, coming out of COVID and out of the second lockdown. When school resumed, he basically was not able to go back to school. We had a whole term 4 of not functioning, in bed, not eating, sleeping all day, not even getting up to have a shower. So it was quite confronting, and if you recall, at that time, that was towards October, November 2021, I think, there was no access to mental health professionals, all the psychologists, psychiatrists, everyone were overwhelmed with the amount of, with the demand. So we had nowhere to go, and unfortunately, I ended up in emergency room with him, and that's how we got into the system and started the journey of healing. But I'm thinking, if that is my experience and Ray's experience, what else is out there? And that's what led me to want to give back to the community who supported us when we really needed it, and volunteer with Ray's. But just some of the issues is mental health issues, social anxiety, emotional struggles, and then academic pressure. They go through a lot, and they only 14, 18, they don't have the resources that we do as adults, and I think that we all have responsibility to do what we can to support. It's basically the next generation. They are the people who are going to lead and run countries. So.
I think my one is kind of an interesting one, really. Is if I look at the overseas situation first, which could arrive on the doorstep, it's providing education for some of the companies that employ individuals and looking at how individuals are becoming radicalised from a very early age as well. I've done a lot of investigations into this over the many years in the Middle East and certain other countries, and it's providing education to support individuals to identify how kids can become radicalised as well. If I come back to home, I think one of the things that I found tough, reiterating what you were saying as well, I found the family courts let a lot of parents down. Sorry to say this, but what happened was that it developed this thing called parental alienation, where at the end of the day, what happened was the mother or the father was actually kind of given a stigma or an attachment or whatever, which meant at the end of the day, you ended up with an absolute chasm of the connection there, really. And this is why the parent-child survival course was born, is to bring these kids back together again, because we were away in Europe a couple of years ago, came back and found the 2 kids that jumped off Bengali Head. And to me that was so sad, because these were really great kids, but at the same time they dropped out completely, and they'd end up in this particular convenient Northern Beaches homelessness situation, where I didn't even realise about this until 6 months ago, but they go from house to house to house. So homeless is not what you can see on the streets. It's actually disconnection from the parents, and that's what you need, and that's why we put the course on there.
So we've seen a significant increase in the complexities of the presentations of the young people that are coming to our service. We've got many young people who arrive grappling misdiagnosed or undiagnosed mental health, who significantly need specialist intervention pathway, or they need some disability support services. And our service, the biggest challenge for us is we simply don't have the resources to access the diagnostic work that needs to be done with these kids, so that we can get them into the right path, into the right trajectory, so they get the supports that they need. And I suppose another emerging trend, just echoing what you just mentioned, is chronic school absenteeism, which is it's a bit of a residual impact of COVID. And I suppose when those young people or children, they're not transitioning from primary to high school correctly, they're not getting the connectedness to the high school situation, they would be high risk for exploitation by a negative peer group, some antisocial behaviours, and that is a fast track to the criminal justice system and youth homelessness.
This is a more personal question, but how did you come to be involved in the line of work that you're in now? And what do you find most meaningful about the day-to-day work that you do?
So I'm super passionate about children, and I started volunteering. The Salvation Army is my church, has been for a very, very long time. And I started volunteering, as you would say, when I was 14. I'm 46. So I'm very blessed to have been employed with the Salvation Army for quite a number of years now, still working with children. I've worked with teenagers and families over the years. So my role now is just a bucket load of fun. I I write curriculum for programs, I run camps. I just love what I do. And yes, the children and teenagers are our future, but they're also the present, right? So I've forgotten the question.
What do you love about your job?
Well, that's good. I'm glad I'm going there. So I'm just so blessed to do what I do, and I work with leaders, I train up leaders to do the same thing who are also passionate about children. So is that it? Have I answered the question?
Pretty good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carissa.
So yeah, as for me, as I mentioned, it started with a personal struggle at home, which led me to want to contribute and to support other children. I saw the support that my child received, and I wanted to give back. But also in my profession throughout the years, mentoring especially women in the workforce to overcome self-doubt, and etc., etc. I see this similarity, this synergy in the work. Because really, when we think about mentoring and supporting other people, sometimes it's just holding space for them to be heard and to say what they feel, not necessarily having to fix things for them. And sometimes it's the difference that makes the difference and maybe help someone to think twice before they harm themselves.
Mine was a remarkable journey. I've written a book about it at the back there. That's a plug. I've mentioned it a few times. I actually came from a really bad childhood at 17, started 16, 17, where my dad really didn't think I was worth it. And I then joined up to the Navy, and I kind of proved it wrong, and I made a career out of it. I went then into the Marines, to the commando team, and I got the commando medal for the best student on the course. And so what I'm trying to do is to project into the youth element here, because I was heading for the wrong side of the track, there's no two ways about it. But I got the commando medal because I was picking people up and making sure that they got through the commando course as well. So it's free to call, as they said anyway. But what was interesting for me, what I didn't know about when I spoke to my editor, is she said, quote unquote, you've literally taken that from a very young age as a model of looking after people, and you've sprinkled it all the way through to 60 years of age now, okay? And we've just finished getting Afghan refugees out just by our own particular kind of provision, with no particular protection. And I'm going to see one of them in Washington next week, so that's the thing that really keeps me going all the way through. Thank you.
I sort of tripped and fell into this industry, and turns out I'm pretty good at it. And for me, I just really wanted to be the person in someone else's life that I really needed when I was a teenager. So if I can influence or positively influence someone else's life, just one small degree, then that is changing their trajectory.
One more question from me, then we'll have, I think, a little bit of time to get a few questions from the audience as well, so please begin thinking what you might want to ask any of our panelists. So as a last one, I'm interested in the impact that you have seen from your work, either a story about a young person whose lives you've helped transform, or broadly the impact you see day to day in what you do. And again, we will start from Carissa.
I think I'll talk about, during COVID, the role that I had during that time. I was the regional youth, children and family coordinator in the greater Mount Druitt and Penrith area. So my role out there, I was one of those people that was able to get an essential worker permit. Do you remember those? So, which meant I was able to leave my home, I was able to get in my car with my mask and my gloves and whatever else I needed, and I was still able to visit and support families in need. I had 100 families. Now that's not a lot. I had 100 families that I would visit on a rotate of every 3 weeks during that COVID lockdown. And during that time we were able to partner with people like Woolies, and we were able to do a family feeding program, and we were able to partner with Rotary, and we were able to deliver laptops and devices that were needed for children to do their online schooling. But it was that time that I found that I was able to connect with parents that I wouldn't normally have anything to do with because it was their children that came to our programs. So it was a beautiful time that I was able to connect with families. So it's not just one story. There are many stories. There are many families that I was able to, I think, just have that connection. I reckon kept some people alive. And I was so privileged to be in that position. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Oh my gosh. So I think it wasn't just one person, there were so many people. I was, I think, called to a home at 11 o'clock one night, and there was a mother laying on the floor in her bathroom and didn't want to continue her life. And that was because of the connection that I had with their children who came to our after-school program. So relationships grew, and it wasn't just children that we were able to connect with during that time. But it was just, that was probably, there was so much during that lockdown that I realised that what the Salvation Army does, the raw ministry on people's front doorsteps, mattered. And it was during that time, and I've been in the Salvation Army a heck of a long time, and it was during that time that I realised that that is what raw connection and ministry is that the Salvation Army delivers.
Well, I'm happy to bring a couple of stories from my mentee. So last year I had the privilege to work with a young girl. She was in year 9, and such a complex and I guess sad life journey that she's had in that sort of short period of time of her life. An alcoholic mother, abusive father, and here she is at the age of 14 having to attend school, survive academically, and potentially run the household, making sure that the 2 brothers are also okay. And it's not something that you hear students talk about. It's something that if the system catches it, it's great, but if not, they lost. And at 14 to have to bear all of this responsibility with no help is heartbreaking. So it was this weekly catch-up, so sometimes we talked about nothing, sometimes we talked about deep problems, but eventually for her, the right call was to leave the school system and go and get a job, and I was there to help her write her CV and secure her first role, which is the least that I could have done to support her. And the second one, which is the one from this year, I just received this card from her last week. This beautiful, again, I think year 9 again, very shy, insecure, not many friendships, and to support her and to receive this, she wrote to me, "Dear Moran, you made me feel more confident and happy. You are the reason why I enjoy coming to Raise. You have helped me with friendship and overcome toxic friendships, and I had really fun time with you, and I hope you had fun time with me too."
Love that story. I think, again, I'm going to throw 3 at you very quickly anyway. The first one, they always say that charity begins at home, and myself and my partner here came up with a little initiative a couple of years ago. It worked really well. Any change you see on the floor, 20 cents, $1, whatever, pick it up, put it in your pocket, stick it in the jar. By the end of the year, we then go to Anaconda and buy sleeping bags, and the kids have to go onto the extra street to talk to the people who are homeless. But they don't get a sleeping bag until they found the backstory of that person. Because homelessness itself is not about drug addiction, it's not about alcohol abuse, it's about everything else. Someone's had an accident, dropped out. And our kids got a lot out of that really, and it started a community kind of spirit, which was fantastic. The second one is controversial, okay, so I'm going to put it out there at the moment. A gentleman came to me and said his daughter was being abused and has been thrown out of a private school. And what can we do? And he was really distraught, this chap. He managed to get his daughter's phone. This is where the controversy comes in. And we managed to get into the phone and find the images, the video contents, the horrible abuse that this child was getting. And he was relieved that he found out the backstory of exactly what was going on. And we think at the end of the day,
it saved her from going into depression and also suicide tendencies, really. Third one is a bit more uplifting, is our parent-child survival courses, which is written in the book as well. The parent-child survival courses are remarkable when we started to look at the disconnection from a communication point of view with families, mothers, fathers and kids. And there's one moment where one of the girls came on the course on the first day, very, very shy, obviously traumatised by something, but she wouldn't really join in, she couldn't take part. And in the end, on the third day, when we were doing this night navigational exercise, she'd come up on the radio, Charlie Bravo sent over, sent. And she had this most amazing voice, and I said afterwards to her, I said, look, I said, you just projected yourself completely, and you're talking to your mum, you don't think she's vile anymore, okay, and she doesn't think you're vile, and that to me was success as far as we were concerned. End of day 3. Thank you.
Success for our young people, it comes in all shapes and sizes. A huge success for one person might not be the same for another. There's no cookie cut out, which is the same for all of these young people. It ranges from young people who can get out of bed for one day that week to the 18 young people that achieved their HSE last year while living in supported accommodation service, which is huge. And we've also got stories from parents who feel that when they were feeling very out of control and chaotic in their home environment, that they were given a sense of hope and they didn't have to do things alone, and it managed to get their family system through a very difficult, the most stressful period of their entire lives. Some of those young people were able to remain in the family home, others came to live with us with some support, therapeutic support around them, and they managed to return back to the family home. So.
Well, we do have time, I'm told, for just 1 or 2 questions from the floor. If anyone would like to raise their hand, we'll try and get a roving mic to you. Ready? Are we okay with, we're just calling out the question? Does anyone need it recorded? Nope, great. Yellow way, thank you.
Hi. Thank you all so much for the presentation. You've got a number of politicians in the room, let's call us representatives. What message would you like to tell all of us that we can take to our parliaments?
Thank you, Dr. Scones.
You go first this time.
No pressure. To be honest with you, I think that when I look at things like the course, and there's many courses out there, don't get me wrong, to help people, investment and funding, okay, and targeted funding really, because Northern Beaches is a privileged state, there's no 2 ways about it. And I think what concerns me is that we can turn these courses over, and I love the courses, but the problem is we're not actually getting the right demographic. The people who can't afford to come on the courses, so we need investment from that point of view. And whether that's a grant scheme or whatever, that's what would be great to take place to Parliament. Thank you.
It's probably saying the same message.
Maybe we'll go maybe to Nikki first and then. Yeah.
I'm going to go housing approach. So aside from needing more housing stock available, it's also around initiatives for these young people, young adults, to access affordable accommodation with the increases in the rental prices. We're currently in a rental crisis, and for us particularly, it's extremely difficult and challenging for us to transition young people into the private rental market when they simply can't afford it.
I guess I'll take it to sort of the more personal level. Programs like RAISE, but it's not the only program, allows for individuals, for companies, for organizations to send volunteers. So, for example, an organization that can support its employees to take some time off for 6 months in a year on a weekly basis and go and speak to young people. So you feel their struggle and it becomes sort of personal, and when you're more emotionally invested, it will be much easier to channel resources that way.
I think maybe organisations like ours, or even just I think individuals, if you're going to your local MP because you've got a desire or a gut feeling of how you want to help people, and I guess whether that's in school or whether that's in your community, your neighbourhood, if you've got something burning and a desire that you need support, then you should be able to go to your local member or your council and just say, hey, I really want to do this. So I guess the people that make all the big decisions and cross the T's and dot the I's, if someone has a burning desire to support their local community, let's listen to them. Actually hear their voice about what is burning deep inside them to support others. So I guess maybe just let's listen. Let's and just be open to the people's desire to help one another, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm not going to go like the answer. I think the other one as well is it's key for me, and I think other people have had the experience. When you're looking at the problem itself for the homelessness side of it, you have to go to the root cause. And the root cause is disconnection of families. There's no two ways about it, parents, obviously in particular. So I think more needs to be done in the family court system to stop parental alienation, and voices need to be heard. I felt in my case it just wasn't. I was kind of pushed aside as another number, and I think that we really need to start to take it seriously and support the family court system as well.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? There's one over here.
There you go.
I think there's a mic behind you.
I was hoping a screen. Thank you to all of you, and I see you all as people who hold great responsibility. And in that, I was just wondering, words have meanings, and responsibility is a big word that gets thrown out a lot. My question is, probably for everyone to consider, but for the four of you, to help me understand what responsibility means for you.
Responsibility. Who wants to take that one? Maybe start with Vicky.
Great question. For me, it's really important, or it's important for us that young people are understood by us and that they think that we're good to talk to. So essentially, when we look at the nuts and bolts of everything, it's around how we're communicating, how we're engaging, that we're listening, we're giving young people a voice, and we're really working with that young person. So our responsibility is essentially the young person, it's the child, and it's their experience and their reality and their story. And all that encompasses that. So that would be the family system that wraps around that family, all of the stakeholders that are involved. It's around having the meetings, setting the agendas, and making sure that everyone's on the same page with the goals that the young person needs or the family need in terms of making change and moving forward and progressing positively with their life.
Yeah, that's a great question actually, and I think that from my point of view, I think the biggest problem we've got is we don't listen. Parents in particular just are too busy in their lives, wrapped up in technology, going from A to B, committed to everything else. And when you are committed to your kids, you are committed. There's no two ways about it. You cannot actually kind of divorce yourself. You cannot farm that out or contract it out or whatever. And the second part, really, my answer to that question is that as a company, Xeris International, when we're responsible for something, we never let anyone down. If we are committed, we'll get there, okay? And we do not actually pay lip service to anything at all. People need to get out, and they've asked me, I'll get them out. I would never let anyone down, and that's the responsibility that everyone has to bear all the way through.
Yeah, I think very briefly, I'm going to echo what you both said, but it takes a tribe, right? You know, and we think, okay, well, I'm going to concentrate on my life and my kids because that's what I can control, but it's beyond that. Responsibility is really understanding that we are a collective and we all have a role and responsibility to do what we can to support others.
I suppose I just can't say ditto, right? Yeah, my personal conviction, my personal responsibility is others. And if you're involved in the Salvation Army, if you're volunteering for the Salvation Army, if you're part of the Salvation Army, it's about others. And but I have to model that. It's not just sitting up here and speaking that and, you know, leading that. I actually have to model that. And the Salvation Army is about the whosoever. And it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter, you know, where you're at. You know, we are here to model the love and care that, you know, we believe Jesus would give if he was here on earth. And so every time I get up, every time I run a camp, every time I run a program, every time I teach a junior leader to do that same thing, it's about, my responsibility is to love and care for others. You know, if I was just looking after myself all the time, that would get a bit boring, right? I think, but that's my responsibility to my children, to, you know, the people that I lead and I work with. So it's always got to be about others.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who asked a question, and thank you to our panellists. Please thank one more time our panel, Nikki Thompson, Moran Bailey, Carissa Ainsworth, and Tony Lochran. Thank you.
You can remain seated just 1 second. All right, so we've got the Leagues Club would like to say thanks to you. So we've got like a token of appreciation, and so as for Michael. So Sandra, you want to get the first one for Michael? So these little gifts are actually made by our queen bee. So this way you can take with you something from the Northern Beaches. All right, and then we've got Nikki. Do you want to do the other ones? Tony. Moran and Carissa. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and for helping our community and making it a better place for everyone.